Hey everybody, welcome to season 4 of What's IGN Crushing On. I'm Karen Walby-Solomon and I'm your host, and we're here to talk about what's hot in pop culture. Today's episode is brought to you by Syntech. Syntech is a technology company that sources and distributes industry-leading products and brands from around the world. Hey everybody, welcome to our Bridgerton Roundtable. Today we have an amazing group of guests with us, ready to chat about Bridgerton Season 2. Hey guys, so I'm going to introduce you in order of how you appear on my screen, as I've said, which is also happens to be alphabetical order, but so welcome to Erin. Say hi,
Hello.
Erin.
Hi.
Faatimah.
Hi.
And Khensani.
What's up?
So guys, I know I gave you a tall order, but what was it like binging Season 2 in a matter of 2 days? And that was really not cool, but I mean, I don't know. How did you guys find the Season 2? I'm going to start with Erin and then we can work our way through.
So I binged season 1 in a single night, which was New Year's Eve 2020. I was in quarantine after my mom found out she had COVID at 6:30 that evening. So
Sure.
I was miserable and ended up watching Bridgerton until 2 in the morning. So that was fun. It was a lovely distraction. Season 1 versus season 2 binge, I definitely found season 1 to be the easier watch. With season 2, I felt I had to pay way more attention to what was going on, especially because there were quite a few subplots. Was the feeling a little bit different? I would think so, because I'd say that there wasn't the same type of excitement that we had in season 1, purely because season 1 was also very salacious and sexy, whereas season 2 was far more emotionally driven. But watching it over 2 days, hey, that was fun. I was geared up for that. I thoroughly enjoyed it. My family was banned from the TV, so all good for me.
And you, Faatimah?
My mom was actually coming to stay with me for the first time in Joburg. And I was just like, okay, I'll wait and I'll watch the first episode with my mom. And then it was past her bedtime. And I was glad that nothing spicy happened because I did not want to watch that with my mom. And then I literally stayed awake until 2 in the morning the next day. And this was Saturday and I was completely finished. But in terms of the season, I actually really enjoyed season 2 more. But that's because I was personally looking forward to it, given that Simone Ashley was playing a character who represents like my South Asian background as well. We may not necessarily be from like the same places in India, but the cultural things that happened in the show was so like fascinating for me to see during like the Regency era, which I've been obsessed with my whole life. Erin was so right about it being more emotional. And I really liked that they uncovered like the grief and the backstory and the burden that Anthony had to bear, because no offense to him, he was pretty shit in the first season.
Very much so. Khensani and you?
So I watched all of season 2 from yesterday morning. I finished maybe like 1 a.m. today. Had a lot of fun. Like I just did not move. I was stuck in my bed, like just like enwrapped. I definitely think season 2 was a big improvement on season 1. Like I get that there was a lot less sex, but it felt more like reading a proper like historical romance novel, and the heavy breathing and the forlorn looks. Like it was just like, that was what I really wanted even from the first season. Like it was like, I felt like I was watching Pride and Prejudice again or something. Like big like just bodice turning energy. Like that was good.
Oh, okay. I don't know. I'm a bit on the fence, but it's nice to hear your guys' positive energies. The first time I watched it, I watched it a couple of weeks ago for the first time, and I was very, very excited because this book is one of my favorites, and I've reread it so many times over the years. But I think it's also a problem because I went into it expecting it to be like the book, and it was not. Um, it was not like the book at all. And
Oh.
this is my favorite couple. And I was just like, I just want to see them together. And they were not together for most of the season. So I was a little bit upset. But then because I've had some time between watching it, I went back and I watched some of it again, quite a bit of it again. And then I started enjoying it more. And, I am quite sad that we didn't see a lot of Kate and Anthony's. And we'll talk about that next. But I mean, and a lot of the side plots, I don't know if the side plots, if I just wasn't interested in it, or if I just wanted more Kate and Anthony's. It took away from that for me and I got upset. But yeah, we will also talk about that later. But yeah, I felt like season 1 was an easier watch because it felt like it flowed better. Like this, it felt like the pacing was a little bit off. Like it was very, very slow for the first 5 or 6 episodes, and then it went very fast. So for me, it wasn't as, as Erin said, not an easy watch. But I mean, it still gave what it needed to give. Like the cinematography was excellent. The music, oh my gosh. Like the scores, I mean, even the that version of How Deep Is Your Love,
So
the Calvin
good.
Harris song. Oh my gosh, I loved it. Um, yeah, but yeah, still gave what it needed to give, and I'm gonna talk about this later on, but I'm gonna bring it up now. But the one thing that really stood out for me was that the show changed a lot. It changed from being like a romance storyline, like one couple's like romance, whatever, to becoming like a very much ensemble drama in the line of like Downton Abbey or like that new show, The Gilded Age. Like it seems like it's moving towards that direction. And yeah, we'll talk about it later, but I'm curious to hear what you guys think. So, okay, let's talk about the main couple, Anthony and Kate. So, what did you guys think of them? I mean, you don't have to compare them to Simon and Daphne, but if you want to, you can. Erin, if you want to go.
I love that Kate came out as a very strong-minded female character from the word go. That was obviously very different to how Daphne was portrayed in season 1, and I love that there was like a bit of an equal partnership dynamic between her and Anthony. Wowie! I mean, we knew Jonathan Bailey was hot in season 1, but good grief, that man evolved into like some kind of sex pot, very hot, brooding, thing, and it was just fantastic to watch. I was like, and what I liked is that he got better with each episode as he was peeling back the layers of this character until you get him in episodes sort of 5, 6, 7, and you're like, hey, where you been hiding all that sauce, for the last season and a half. I love that they argued. I think Ashley Simone did an amazing job of bringing all of that bubbling frustration and irritation and intelligence out in the scenes where they fought with each other, and they really played off that we really just hate each other thing fantastically well throughout the season. And I think that's what's going to make it hard for a lot of people to sort of get into, was because Daphne and the Duke gave us spice and gave us attraction, almost instantaneously, where these two literally do hate each other. There is massive conflict. There is clashing. It's fire and brimstone up in there. But it makes for a really rewarding turn of events when they finally, figure their issues out. I do feel that there was a lot of their love story that could have been developed, I think, a bit better with more attention, but we were all distracted by the side plots that were going on. Credit to the actors, though, for pulling off a very interesting hate-love, not even love it, hate-love dynamic, and for bringing a lot of nuance to the emotions. And also, I very clearly understood where they were connecting on that level of, we have duty, and the whole theme of duty and responsibility and what that means in the mix of their relationship, and the discussion around the choices they make between being open-hearted and loving versus the obligations they have to their family. So as a couple, I do kind of dig them. I mean, I was in from the start. I had no reservations about how that story was going to develop. It got tricky, but yeah, credit to the actors for bringing a lot to a very complicated couple situation.
Faatimah?
I also really loved this book, and they are my favorite couple out of all the siblings. And that's mostly because love hate is like my trope. It goes
too.
love hate and then friends to lovers, but love hate is right up there.
Friends to lovers
But
can be taken the bin.
Thank you. So I think that part, you know how they met, and that was like that instant chemistry, but the fact that they couldn't realize it or accept it until they were forced into these situations is just, it's so magical to watch it play out on screen. And he really went for like the subtleties of like inhaling her scent, which is so creepy in 2022. But in the Regency era, I'm like, huh. And knowing like all of that angst was so present and was so there for me. But I really think they deserved so much more screen time, and I wish we got to see them happier together longer. Like, I just feel like we spent too much time seeing them suffer. And that changed from the book, and that part sort of upset me, and it made me really dislike the little sister for this whole like love triangle, which didn't, like, I get that it's more dramatic and more saucy and it makes it feel so much more powerful, but like the delicacy of how it was handled in the book I think was better. But I did appreciate, I read this in a tweet somewhere where they focused on the fact that both of them have grief from like losing their respective dads and what an impact that played, and how responsible they feel for their family. And they focused on that as opposed to like their both irrational fears, which was for him like being stung by the bee, or for her in the book it was really a focus on like thunderstorms, which kind of was brushed over in this in the series. But it focused on what really unites them. And like Daphne picked up on the fact that they were so similar. And I really enjoyed that. But I wanted to see them more happy. Like, please give me more. And I know that they will be present in the other seasons. And we'll get to obviously see them grow and be happy as a couple then. But it did get very tiresome of him thinking, yes, I'm just going to marry Edwina because she's perfect and she's everything that I want, when Kate is literally there and he's already confessed his love to her. It was really frustrating. But Jonathan Bailey can have me anytime.
Yeah.
Oh my God. I am not seeing it for him. I'm so sorry. Like, he's a nice guy, but I did not think he was that hot. I can't. He's just like a dude. I tried, like, when there was that like wet t-shirt like little scene, I was just like, what are you looking at, girls? Get up.
I love that.
I get it. But I think also just because like the Duke is a really hard actor to follow. Like, that was a really fine man. But other than that, I think I liked their romance so much because I really enjoy Kate as a character. I think she's a lot more developed, or she gets a lot more to do than Daphne did. Not that Daphne's story definitely has some credit, but like Kate's just automatically a likable character. She's flawed and she's prickly and she does things you don't agree with a lot, and it just makes her more interesting to see. And I think that's also what makes it so like cathartic when she does finally find happiness, and there's like a really good path to that we see. And I enjoyed I think that like their reasoning for not being together was just a lot better in my head than what had happened in season 1 with Simon and Daphne. Like, I couldn't get behind a lot of that. And I think that was really cool. I think the love triangle did get a bit silly sometimes, but I enjoyed them. I think in terms of like the amount of screen time, there were times I felt like it was a bit lagging. Because, I mean, you know how the trope's going to end. And it is fun to see the journey. But there were just times when I was like, I'm going to need a bit more reason as to why you guys are getting together. Like, maybe one more complication or something. But still very solid, and still I think an improvement from season
1. There's a scene where they are like in the library, and like Faatimah will know it's a very important scene in the book, but it's just a scene where they're bonding about their trauma. And I just felt like that should have been longer in the show, because then we sort of like understand better why they have this connection to each other, or why they feel like, you know, this. Yeah, like this is the one person who understands me. And so I feel like just making that one scene longer could have just change a lot of what people, I mean, I've heard a lot of people saying like we don't feel why they are like so drawn to each other other than like attraction. And yeah, just like, yeah, that's one of my main gripes, and obviously the fact that they don't have enough screen time. But I think the chemistry between Simone and Jonathan was like top tier. Like they must have done like those old school, old Hollywood like chemistry tests with the two of them, because like the way that, I don't know, every time they were on screen and just like how they were moving, like the dance they were doing around each other, just, I was like, I'm here for this 100%. Yeah, but like I also think that I personally think that they should have ended the engagement after that dinner in episode 5 with Mary, with the grandparents. I was like, why is this still going on? Why is it going all the way to the altar? Like, it was such a perfect point to end it. And then you have at least some time of like dealing with the scandal, trying to, make, the families coming together, trying to sort things out before we have, Kate and Anthony eventually getting together. Like, you still have to deal with that aftermath. So yeah, I felt like the drama was a little bit too unnecessary. Like, I don't know, one of you said also like, why are you still not together? What is still keeping you?
Literally.
Like, it was just too much. But yeah, like I feel like they were trying to keep them apart as long as possible, and they just kept on trying to make more and more. Where we could have done with yeah, like we could have, like, I don't know if any of you guys watch Outlander. I don't really, but I watched the first season. But
Same.
there was an episode. There was an episode where it was the wedding night, and it was just them having sex whole episode. And like I would have done with an episode of that. I don't care what it is. You can just have an extra episode where it was just them being happy together and doing, seeing what they are like. Because in our heads, I mean, obviously we like Faatimah said that they're probably going to be in the later seasons, but in our heads, it's like we've just seen them like fight and be in pain. So we don't know how they will work as a couple being happy when there's none of these complications. So I think that it would have done them a lot of like, it would have been really healthy for us as viewers to see them as a couple without these complications. And how, other than that, the little bit of, the epilogue at the end. So, so yeah, I don't know. I'm always campaigning for more like 6 episodes. So I mean, I don't know.
Season 1,
For the sake of
episode
the
5.
plot, of course.
Yeah, season 1, episode 5. Yeah. Okay. So okay. What did you guys think of Edwina? Like the little sister, because she was. Do you think she was like a pawn, or do you think she was enough of her own character? I don't know if anybody wants to go first. I'm not going to pick on anybody.
I would say that going back to your reference now about the dinner episode, I found like Edwina was yes, she kind of portrayed like a version of like a Daphne in her innocence and just being charming. But at the what happens from the dinner episode, she's angrier at the wedding than she is at the dinner when everything is revealed. And I'm like, but she should have been angrier about that, because that's when she should have realized that she's a pawn in this whole situation. At the same time, though, I do feel that if she understood why Kate was doing what she was doing, and that she was actually being like quite selfless and trying to secure her sister's happiness and not for any sort of other gain, I felt like her anger was somewhat misplaced. And so there was a bit of a muddle. And the redeeming moment for me comes when she's with the queen and handles the situation with the king really, really beautifully. And that became like the redemption moment for that character who, for let's be honest, most of that episode is acting like a bit of a brat. And she's like advocating for, I want to have my own mind. And we're like, okay, gal, do what you need to do. Like, you're stressing the whole damn episode. Just decide and mission forward. but like I say, that for me, that was the redeeming moment for that character, was seeing this inherent kindness in her come out in that moment with the king. I was like, oh, there she is. Okay, that's actually who this character is, rather than this sullen, very confused little girl who is angry in different ways over different things, which makes no sense towards her sister. On the whole, though, I do, having not read the books, because I now know that Edwina in the books and Edwina in the season are two completely different characters, vastly different characters. I'm kind of cool with Edwina. Yeah, we'll see what happens if she appears again in future seasons. But yeah, it took a long time for her to have the development that she needed to sort of stand in the midst of that situation and make her choices in her presence now.
I really have a lot to say about Edwina. Like, she just frustrated me to no end. But she is the caricature of that sweet younger sister who's just saying all the right things. And this is a comment my mom made as well when we were watching it together. She was like, she looks like a trained puppy. Like, everything that Anthony has to say is like, yes, this is so, like, his answers are like, oh, you're so agreeable. Oh, I'm going to be away from my kids for a long time. That's okay. I want to support my husband. Like, girl, have something in you that's more than just focused on being this perfect little character, you know. I just wanted more to see that side of her, and I get that her sister, you know, like, devoted her time to making her so worthy of a suitor, and she genuinely is, and she's sweet and kind-hearted. But the way she treated Kate post everything, just, like, I wanted, like, I felt things, like, very bad things towards her, because she failed to understand her sister's perspective. And I think that's where it made me really angry, because your sister was in pain, your sister was in yearning. She was doing all of this for you. And I get that you're hurt and it's distracting. And it's a lot of people are not actually enjoying this whole love triangle thing. That they're like, how are we supposed to enjoy the scene between Kate and Anthony knowing that he is literally betrothed to her little sister? And that takes away from us enjoying the main characters. Towards the end, I guess, you know, she is sort of trying to understand her own mind and be her own person. But I think in the books and stuff, like, she had a bit more spunk, and she had actually found a love interest of her own. And she fully understood, like, Anthony did not love her. And she could see that. And I was actually talking to Erin about this, but that scene where she was like, in the room, and she was like, how could I have been so blind? And we were all screaming at the screen, like, yes, you were forcing them to spend time together, and now you're angry. Like,
she wants to
it
dance
seems
with
very
you.
misplaced. Thank you. So yeah, that's my take on Edwina. But I wish that the sisterly relationship will continue to prosper and heal, because that part meant a lot to see the very maternal dynamics, especially between Mary and Edwina and Kate, and that, like, just doing those little things for your sister and having her do those things for you, like oiling your hair, for instance. All those small things meant so much for me to see on screen, as, like, that's literally what my growing up was like. So I want that sisterly relationship to just heal itself and her to grow up a little.
Shame, on one hand, I'm very sympathetic to Edwina, but just because personally I have an older half sister whose name is Kate, and, like, she also has very similar vibes. Yeah, it was so surreal watching that. I was like, oh, whoa. So on one hand, I kind of get it, and I don't mind the way they had their conflicts, because I think also that's the beauty of having a sibling, is that you can get very harsh and very ridiculous and stubborn, but, like, your family, eventually it's all love. You come to work it out, and that's one of those few places where sometimes you just get a lot angrier because I think of how much you care and love the person. That being said, though, Edwina was, like, I felt like she was such a nothing character for so long. Like, she was such a Mary Sue. She's so flawless. Like, she just never does or says anything wrong. Which, I mean, yeah, I'm sure maybe there are people that exist like that in the world. But it just like, I had no stakes in the game for her, even though I still think she was rightfully angry. Because, I mean, discovering that your sister and your fiance and love at your wedding in front of the queen and the archbishop and the entire town, I would have lit something up. Like, I think she was actually very reserved. I would have burnt that building because, like, what do you mean right now in front of God and the Queen that this is happening? Like, what? Like, why don't you just have an affair when we're married like normal people? Like, that's insane to me. So I think I sympathize with it. I like that at the end she grows a backbone. She has a little bit something more to say than just smiling and like having her hands just, you know, delicately in the air all the time. Like, she eventually at least has something. And I would love to see what happens with her and that Prussian prince, because that sounds like fun. But yeah, she's okay.
She's okay. I also kind of, I was also like, I kind of get where she's coming from, because I was like, firstly, how messy is Anthony to look at Kate during the whole wedding ceremony?
Girl.
I'm like, have some decorum, please. Like, at least pretend properly.
Let's have a sexy moment with a bangle right there at the end of her dress.
Why are you picking up the bangle? She's 2 hands. She can do it herself. I don't understand why he also needs to. While they're doing their wedding vows, it's giving very Days of Our Lives for me. But I was just like, no, I would have been just as upset if it was me. I'm so glad my siblings and I do not have the same taste in men. No, but like the one thing that, like, no, for me, Edwina in the books, and I hate going back to the books because I know it's terrible. You should separate the two, but she's very perceptive, so she kind of knows that there's something going on with Kate and Anthony, or that there's more to it than what Kate is saying. And what I get from that is that Kate underestimates Edwina, so she doesn't realize how much Edwina knows or how much Edwina understands her. And that is a dynamic that I miss, because as far as we know, Kate is 100% right. Edwina can't, in the show, I'm saying in the show, Kate's 100% right. Edwina can't pick a partner for herself because this guy that she's picking for herself does not love her, is using her as a pawn. So Kate is 100% right to be so involved in her life. Whereas in the books, Edwina knows that she's like, she doesn't really want Anthony. She's busy finding her own love match in the background, and she's doing her own thing that Kate doesn't even notice. And that just shows, like, you know, Kate thinks she has all this duty, but meanwhile, Edwina is strong enough to take care of herself. And I missed that, because, maybe Mary should have been more of a hands-on parent. But now we Kate should be looking after her sister, because her sister is going wild here on her own. But yeah, I did miss that. So I know Faatimah touched on this before, but like, what did you guys think about like how diversity was handled in the show? Like, I must say, I was a little bit iffy about season 1, because they just sort of like said like, oh yes, the king married a black woman. Now black people are accepted in England. Yeah, I'm like,
the world is healed.
Yeah, and I've seen some complaints like online about, we can't take away from what Britain did in India.
Yes.
By saying, like the problems, like, and it's like, no, they're also part of our system. So, and I know it's fictional and we should treat it as fictional, but it's also talking about some real life trauma that people have gone through that have affected real people's lives. So, how do you guys feel about how diversity was handled in this season?
They do gloss over history quite thickly there, because remember when Kate has the conversation with the Dorset character, and he goes on and on and on about like the beauty and the splendor of India, and he's like, yeah, this is orcs, bro, because you are now.
Like, why were you there, man?
Why were you there?
Really vibes.
Yeah.
So just gonna make the whole thing super chill. It's it's swathed over with a very like sort of heavy brush, a thick brush.
Mm.
And it's a question of like, how do you as the audience want to deal with this? On the one hand, you can be like, okay, this is fiction, and we're going to accept it as that, and rather look at it from a glass half full perspective in terms of representation in our TV shows and in our media. So if you look at it from that sort of blinkered view, it's great because all of a sudden now you were seeing Asian characters this season. You were seeing a lot more sort of mixed couples this season. I love that, dark-skinned women were just portrayed really beautifully, actually, this season. I'm there for that. However, you can't dismiss this historical inaccuracy, and it's how do we as an audience reconcile that within ourselves, and how you're going to look at it, because you take the blinkers off and you do look at the time period and you do look at the history that was going on. It was like, this was not happening. The complete opposite was going on. And is it okay for the show to completely dismiss that horrific history where still to this day there are jewels from India that are sitting in London that just does not belong to them? I'm keen to hear what Khensani has to say.
I want to say that, number one, I think the first issue has always been that from the moment in season 1 when they had the whole thing about the king married Charlotte and then like that ended racism, I'm like, why don't you guys just keep on living in your little like out of time world? Like, I was very happy to just accept that like this was a different like alternative universe, and that's just how things worked. Because it just gets so weird now if that's how quickly racism ends. And again, they handled all of the, first of all, there were like no South Asian like speaking roles in the first season. And then they handled the black people like really terribly. Like, our villains were a dark-skinned man. We had the only sort of like young black woman getting like, she just had that horrible like teenage pregnancy. Like, she's a hussy, fast girl storyline. And like a lot of things that I don't think were even necessary, or like, why couldn't you have given that to another cast member then? And at the end of the day, as diverse as the show wants to be, like the main core cast is still white. They still have a white king. So just like all these, you just set yourself up for more criticism that you needed. And then another thing I feel like with the season, I really would have loved if they did a little more with like Indian textiles, or like bringing a bit more of that heritage into the way they dress, just considering how essential Indian labor and like Indian art was to British fashion at the time. Like the cotton, the embroidery, the jewels, like
muslin.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you're gonna have there, like, let's see some sari. And like, do you know that Regency women used to wear saris? Like, they did that. They were wearing saris. They were wearing turbans. Like, they did that for costume dress. I'm like, this would have been a great time to give a little. I mean, maybe it's a bit generous to like give a little power back to that, but like, what a great time to reference something that is so essential to like English fashion. And like, we rarely saw, like, I think Kate had like a few shawls that had like paisley prints, and we obviously had like the pre-wedding ceremony stuff, but other than that, I was like, you could replace these women with any other race and it actually doesn't really change much of their character, honestly. Which again is like, you set yourself up for this. Why?
I was just super excited again, and I wanted to suspend my disbelief as much as possible, because if I didn't, it would just make me angry. Because I always tell people, like, my motherland was colonized by the British, and then South Africa was colonized by the British, so my family just did not escape colonialism and its impacts. But it was nice for me to see her dissing English tea and just going on that chai and her little spice bag. That was it for me. And my mom was like, that was so cute. So it was little things like that. But I do agree, like, the fashion sort of let me down especially if they came from Bombay. Like, I feel like they should have incorporated more Indian saris and patterns and textiles. But what I did appreciate was the night before Edwina's wedding to Anthony, they had this haldi sort of ceremony, which is something that I've participated in and even like done for my sister. So it was really nice to see that portrayed on screen. Granted, I was literally suspending my disbelief. I'm like, I'm just going to leave my racism and hate for Winston Churchill and Queen Victoria and everything at the door, because otherwise I'm not going to enjoy this as I should. And that was nice, but I wish they also did maybe like henna, because like I literally went to a wedding like a few weeks ago and I'm still have like henna fading off my hands. It was not even my wedding, but like that's such a big deal for Indian brides to have, like all the way up, and so important to our culture. But I appreciated the fact that it was two dark-skinned South Asian women, and not just like your cookie cutter half Indian, half white portrayal of someone. Like if I'm referencing Aladdin, like Jasmine just irritated the life out of me. Like firstly, she's Middle Eastern. Secondly, you've just confused the whole two cultures, which is again frustrating. But I didn't need to see someone who's my color to feel represented in South Asian culture, because India is so big and so diverse, but so many of the core elements carried over. And I want that to be explored more if when they have kids. Like I want to see Kate teach them Hindi, and I want to see them understand like the cultural legacies of where they come from. And if they do that, then I'll be more impressed. But yeah, I put my racism out the window because I suspended my disbelief. Otherwise, the anger inside me would not let me appreciate it. Exactly. But that's me.
Did you guys notice a little bit of code switching that would happen with Kate and Edwina when they would speak to each other versus when they would speak to other people?
The accent that was more distinct. Also, I just one more thing. They all butchered their surname so badly, it made me so angry. But I'm gonna leave it at that.
Wait, what is the correct pronunciation?
It's like Sharma, not Sharma.
No, not
Sharma.
Sharma.
Where's the R? Sharma. And I'm like,
You British people love adding R's where they don't belong, which is like you guys made your own language. Vanilla, like what's going on?
Thank you.
But the little code switching thing for me was very interesting. That they would use their they would speak in just their normal Indian accent, because they obviously include like a couple of Hindi words here and there, and in their pet names for each other as well. That they did that, but the minute in society, the minute they're in company, perfect, like well enunciated Queen's English, I was like, that was never fully explored, and it was such an interesting thing to notice. And I'm telling you now, every person of color noticed it. And you couldn't miss it. It's like, why are you doing that? And there's a layer there that also needed to be explored a little bit more.
But with India and the colonialism, the people who could speak English better and could speak the Queen's English were generally treated better in society. So you were always graded and given higher and better positions based on your eloquency. So the assimilation in terms of trying to be British is like major and still left like really harsh repercussions in like current day India. And even now, like, I mean, I've been in South Africa for 100 years, but I can still, like my family has, but we can still feel what British colonialism did to Indian people and how they view each other in terms of intellect and superiority.
I saw a post, I think it was like on Reddit or something, but it was like a thread that a lot of like people from India were saying that they also, when they made Kate and Edwina from India, they kind of like, it's like they brought together so many different aspects of Indian culture that nobody were like, they were like, calling her Bon didn't represent and then what what they call the father, Appa,
yeah.
Apparently, from a different part of India.
None of it assimilated,
Yeah, so they were like, it's almost like they just splashed it all into one instead of like actually researching.
It was kind of like Black Panther.
Yeah.
Black Panther did. Because India is like big as Africa and as diverse. Like, I'm not even kidding.
So, they could have done more to like just, make
them regionally specific. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also think that they fail in the like trying to blanket these things instead of I'm also more of a fan of, if you want to make it like color blind, whatever, then just don't
address it.
Yeah, don't address it. Just like, now we all every color. It doesn't matter. But I mean, I do think it's also special that they included those kind of things, and I'm not sure how to kind of like, I'm not the writer, so I don't know how to bridge that sort of, gap between what is sensitive and what's not. And but yeah, it was great. I love seeing just like not just white cast, like. So I think for me, I
Mm.
will take it in whatever form it'll come. It'll probably annoy me a little, but I just, yeah, I can't imagine anyone other than Simone Ashley playing that part.
Yeah, she's so
And
good.
so and it's like I can't imagine anyone other than Regé Jean Page playing the Duke now. So it's
Mhm.
like I'm just glad that they did it like that, even though it pisses me off a little. But but yeah. Let's talk about the side plot. So just tell me like which ones you guys liked and which you didn't. So between like the Featherington storyline, Benedict, Eloise, Lady Whistledown, whatever Colin was doing, I have no idea. I don't
Grease.
know what is going on there.
Grease
I'm not gonna
over and
lie.
over again.
Giving I loved
um,
India.
oh my gosh. Oh,
I
okay.
thought,
Yeah, go.
sorry, Benedict. No, it was a Benedict. Is that the artist one?
Yeah.
Why? That was so boring.
So bored.
And I still am at a point where I can't like fully differentiate between him and the younger brother sometimes. So I'm just like they're so interchangeable to me. I just feel like they're very nothing to the plot. Like I'm just like, I don't need this. I'd rather actually see the younger children, like the actual babies, doing something, because I was just like, Benedict's just a guy who drinks a lot. That's his whole thing. That's his like entire character. He's just drunk, and it's just like, why?
But what did you enjoy? Which of the side plots did you enjoy?
Eloise, I think, is like still a fun character. I think she's
Mm.
still endearing, and I mean, I'm surprised that the Miss Lady Whistledown reveal came that soon. But I did like, I kind of enjoy that little mystery and the back and forth and her being confronted by the queen. I thought that was very interesting and kind of scary because like the idea that like your monarch, like the Queen of England, has you in a carriage outside your house, like you better tell me what's up, or like who knows what can happen. And I'm like, I'm sure executions were still legal, so like that was actually quite intense. I was very scared for the girl. I was like, how are you going to get out of this?
Like, the queen is so involved in their lives. I'm like, girl, don't you have some work to do?
She's running a country.
She's bored. She's bored, bro. Her husband ain't well.
Yeah, but I mean, like, so isn't she doing all the stuff? Is this before? Like, did their prime minister say? I don't know.
No, they probably didn't have a prime minister, but they wouldn't have let a woman make the decisions.
Oh, okay, that's also true. So, yeah.
I didn't like the Featheringtons plot. Like, I get that like they are such a dynamic part of the book, and it's the relationship between the two families. But I think but what stood out to me was the fact that they were women who were destitute, and it showed everything that they needed to do in that time frame to be able to secure living the way that they did. And they couldn't exactly go out and like work for themselves. And we know that like Penelope was making an income from Lady Whistledown, and what she does with that, is up to her. But it showed the lengths that they were willing to go to, given that they were like left so high and dry and just dependent on a male heir. So I think that's just a comment on society. Then I did appreciate Eloise and the paperboy, mostly because it just gave me teenage romance love vibes. And like, oh, we're interested in the same things, and poor boy, rich girl, which is another trope, but I'll take it. But I really didn't like the explosion of the friendship between Eloise and Penelope, and that just made me sad, and I don't know how that's gonna develop like going further. Benedict was really comedic relief, especially when he was high on that tea. Like that gave me what I needed from that sibling. It was lovely. And then a friend of mine tweeted that Colin is basically the Kevin Jonas of the family, which is so spot on. But yeah, those are my thoughts on the little side plots. But I wanted more Kate and Anthony.
Mm. Erin?
Side plots for me, I felt that I understood why the Mondrich little side plot, that's the whole subplot, needed to be there for what happens with the Featheringtons. I get that. But it felt pointless to me in sort of the story. I don't know what it was there for. And let's be honest, Mondrich came into the story because of his friendship with the Duke in season 1. How he was handled this season, I was like, what is the point of all this? Totally agree. Benedict's subplot, we didn't need a comic relief, but I think that there were other ways. Honestly, the comic relief could have been shifted into a relationship that I thoroughly enjoyed watching this season, which was the friendship between Lady Violet Bridgerton and Lady Danbury.
Oh, love
that
them.
whole was amazing to watch throughout the season, and honestly, they could have done a whole lot more with those two women and what they were up to and how they were relating to each other and how they were bringing their families together. I really enjoyed that. Eloise's subplot was cool, but now here's my thing. Where Faatimah didn't enjoy the Featheringtons, I really did. Because as you see how this thing moves, I did enjoy the Featherington subplot.
I liked it too.
Because building on what Faatimah said, you do see what these women do to sort of stay where they are. What I found really interesting to watch and see is you realize that Penelope is actually more like her mother than anybody realizes. They're both very smart women. They're both, keen enough to understand how to work the world around them to their advantage. I didn't like Lady Featherington in season 1, but I kind of grew to love her in season 2 because, she's completely shallow. She earns your respect for how she goes about setting her family back up again. I think it's all going to blow up in her face next season. But seeing that sort of those parallel lines work where it was Lady Featherington working on that scheme and then Penelope running her business and how she intelligently goes about, fixing these little situations that come across her way. The Featherington storyline was at times to me slightly more engaging than what was going on with Kate and Anthony.
I think also the cool thing about the Featherington storyline is because I've done some research about how much money families would have to spend when they go for the season. And it's the equivalent of up to millions today. You have to have your summer house, you've got to have the gowns for the ball, and you're changing 4 or 5 times a day. And obviously everything is silk, and then there's the jewelry and stuff. So I like the idea that they show that it's a really pressing financial matter when you want to go out in the season. It's a huge, big investment beyond whatever wealth you have. It's a really big deal. And I wish they went a little bit more into the nitty gritty of the rising costs, because it's not just the dresses and the parties. It's when you go to watch the games and you go see the polo and all the little soirees and stuff you have to have and all the food and the staff you need to get. And I liked a little bit more of the admin side of what it means to be in the season. And it's also just it's a good show of how ridiculously wealthy these people were, because that was not a small undertaking at all. And I like that. I love a little fraud, some embezzlement. That's always fun to see.
Spice things up.
And the swindler in Bridgerton.
Yeah. That's exactly what Lord Featherington was kind of trying to go for, actually.
Yeah, with Cressida, he was gonna swindle them.
She deserved it.
No, she's a little bitch. The one thing I will say, I did like the break up between firstly Penelope and Eloise, as well as Penelope and Colin, because I just think Penelope needs to build her character separate to the Bridgertons. And I feel like she's been kind of she's always I'm not like my own family, I'm more like the Bridgertons, whatever. But then seeing
she's
how
their little pet,
kind of reject her.
Yeah.
She needs to kind of build up who she is, as a person, and not be kind of trying to impress Eloise or trying to impress Colin all the time. So I'm hoping that for season 3 that, we kind of see more of Penelope coming into her own and maturing a lot more. So I think for me, I like that point of her character. I was also the same with like the world monitoring. I'm like, why is this guy here? Is it like, like what is he doing? And he's just
I
so
think they
angry
couldn't
all the
have the
time.
Duke
Like,
back. They couldn't have the Duke back, so they're like, oh, we'll use
yeah,
someone else from season 1 just for diversity.
they could have
He has
made him
your
a
one
little bit more
Negro per
charming.
season.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't know. It's I was just like a little bit. I just think the Feathering. I get the point of the Featheringtons. I just think that the screen time was a bit too much. Like they could have brought it a little bit down. I loved Eloise and Theo. I was like 100%. I thought this boy was so cute. He's like
So
putting
cute.
aside books for her. I'm just like, oh man, like I loved it so much. Benedict, I also got a bit bored with. I was like, bruh, I don't care about this guy's art school. He's very funny in the scenes where it's
Yeah.
like the whole family. Like,
Yeah, they have
give
a good
me him in
dynamic.
those scenes. Yeah, he always like has like a quirk or something like that, and the guy's quite good looking. So I'm like, but Kevin Jonas,
But you know what?
I don't know what he was doing. I
I love
honestly
that scene where
don't.
Marina like just it was needed, but we didn't need the whole build up to that scene. Like they could have run into each other somewhere, and she could have literally just blasted those words at him and woken him up, and that could have been the end of it. But no, we had to have the whole build up to that. That's
think-
what I'm saying. There was a lot of subplot that distracted from the main story.
I think that they introduced that scene because her husband plays a big role later on.
Later on.
So,
yes.
So they have to kind of show us him once every season to kind of like remind the audience that he still exists. So
And he's
I think
coming.
that's why they made it last as long as it did. That's
Okay, exciting.
I don't.
Wait, speaking of people who exist, and Faatimah and I had a chat about this. There are 8 Bridgerton siblings. Why, in both season 1 and season 2, is Francesca completely non-existent? Why?
Apparently the actor was really busy. That's what they said. She like landed a role in another Netflix show and like a lead role, so she couldn't be there as often. But I was like, she just like disappears. Like she's in, I think, the first 3 episodes, and then you just never see her again. And
but she's so not
her
memorable.
storyline's also quite cool, and I think that she might be in the next season. But yeah, like I kept on forgetting, like, and she looks really young in the show. So like I also think she looks a bit like Eloise and the other sister. So I think that it's easy to kind of like forget her in the range of things. But yeah, I don't know what there's. I also I like that they gave the younger two a little bit more character this season.
Agreed.
Yeah. But I think that was
Especially,
necessary
that scene
to
with Anthony
explore.
Gregory. I thought that was
Yes,
really cute.
That was
exactly.
sweet.
It needed to explore that he was basically like their father.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are you guys' sort of like your final thoughts on like with everything Penelope has been doing this season and sort of like the way she handled being confronted by Eloise? Like what is your guys' takeaway from that? Because I just find her very unsympathetic at this point. Like even when she walked in on Colin, like bad mouthing her, I was still like, I don't know, I don't like you that much. That I'm like, am I talking about Penelope? Yeah, Penelope.
I think that she's kind of like a two-faced character. So on the surface, you get this: I'm trying to hide away. I'm non-existent. Nobody thinks of me. Nobody cares about me. Ooh, like I'm just gonna stay back, Penelope. And then you've got her alter ego, who is still Penelope, but the really, really sort of opinionated, headstrong, very like manipulative, and I'm like, how is this the same person? Which one is the true Penelope really? And I hope that now that Eloise has confronted her, that she allows that other side of herself to come to the fore, because I think people like, she's not respected, she's not noticed in society because she doesn't allow that side of herself to be out. It's sort of safer for her to write it than to be it. But when she was confronted by Eloise, you saw it come out because of what she says to her.
Yeah.
And I okay, cool. I see where this is going. And then, I mean, yes, I understood the devastation in breaking up the friendship and the heartbreak. And she's trying to find the balance between these two sides of herself. The one side who's really caring and loving and genuinely cares about this family and her friends. But you've got this other side who's like, yeah, I'm gonna be a mess, and I'm coming and I'm choosing violence over here, and I will attack people.
She's Hannah Montana at
in
this
society
point.
in a secret way because I can and it's safe. But those are her genuine.
She is Dan from Gossip Girl, like in terms of the complete switch up. Like,
oh my word, yes, she is. She is.
Also, I was very sad that like Eloise had brought up like you ruined Marina's life, etc., because the only thing Penelope was truly devastated about doing was when it came to her friend that she sort of ruined. But I'm like, what about all of your other victims? Like, you even lived with one of them. And I've never seen this much concern or like any care from you when you watched Marina almost try to kill herself with that baby. You were like, not once were you ever sitting there like, my pen did this. But you tell something that, I mean, it's a little bit truthful about like Eloise and stuff, and I'm sure she'll recover. Whereas Marina had to like leave town and like whatever. And I'm just like, that's why I don't buy like your pain, because I'm like, you don't like, you only cared once it was the one like rich white lady you want to be so bad.
Yeah. And I think she just feels sorry for herself too much.
Yeah.
Like, own your mess.
The Marina thing is the Marina thing actually really gets me, because I feel like she shows no remorse for that. When Colin is gonna go visit Marina, all she's worried about is that Colin used to like her. Not that like, hey, remember what I did to Marina. And yeah, but I'm glad that Eloise brought it up. Like, you need to reckon with that. Because if the show had completely ignored it, I think I would have been a little bit more pissed. But by Eloise bringing it up, it reminds us that, hey, that is still a thing. And, the show wants us to know that she's not kind of, showing remorse for it. But yeah, I'm interested. I feel like her character is very interesting. And I'm interested to see what they do with her going forward.
I'd love to in season 3, where we've had the flashback. So we had the Duke's flashbacks in season 1. We had Anthony's now in season 2. I would love in season 3 to see the flashback of how she got the idea and how she set this.
Oh wow! That's quite interesting.
So that you understand, where did this even come from? That she decided this season, I am going to verbally
choose violence.
High school secret. Yeah. What sparked that decision for her to be brave enough to be like, oh, I'm going to go find a printer and I'm going to start writing?
How did she know how to do that also? That's crazy, actually.
Stuff. Where did she even think of it? That's what I want to see in season 3.
Yeah.
Give me the flashback to the origin story of the villain that is Lady Whistledown.
Yeah. But I did enjoy her working with the modiste. I thought that was very fun.
Woman empowering woman.
Yep. Supporting women's wrongs.
But did you guys hear the modiste changing to a British accent? Did I imagine that?
No, so that
no, you didn't.
Yeah. It happened in season 1, where she and Benedict encounter each other at a party, and he discovers that this whole Lady Delacroix is a completely made up
fake thing.
Persona.
Oh, okay.
And then Marina still catches her out in season 1, where she speaks to her in French, knowing that no one knows Marina speaks French fluently, and so Marina comes out and basically tells her, you will keep this under wraps, otherwise I'll reveal that you aren't, who you
sorry, I must have forgotten that. Yeah. Because I was like, wait, what? And then, I didn't remember a lot about Madame Delacroix.
But it was cool though that like you had the Madame Delacroix Lady Whistledown thing, where it's like, oh, you are both presenting these fake personas because you are doing it for the sake of your businesses, for the sake of your own empowerment and securing your financial future. I thought that was cool.
Yeah,
like you said, supporting women's wrongs.
So what do you guys want to see in season 3?
It's going to follow Benedict and Sophie, if I'm not mistaken. That's how it
We don't
goes
know.
in the order.
They said
We
it
don't
could,
know, yeah,
they said it, yeah, they said they could mix up the couples a bit,
the order. Yeah.
the order.
So it just depends, but I want to see more of Eloise getting out there and maybe pursuing her little teenage romance. And Penelope going into her own character, Anthony as a father to his own kids, maybe an appearance by the Duke, and just general more shenanigans. That's what I'm here for.
I'm interested to see the relationship between Kate and Lady Violet, because obviously now she takes over as the matriarch.
Oh yeah.
I mean, this woman has been running the ship, behind Anthony for 10 years, raising these children, and now Kate's about to take over that role. And Kate, as we now have seen, very, very headstrong. So what is the dynamic between those two characters running this family moving forward? I just want to see more, Queen Charlotte and Lady Danbury shenanigans. I love them. Please catch on crack for all of our sakes. It's going to be awesome sauce. Benedict's romance, strangely enough, I'm not all of that excited for, because I love him as a kind of a goofball character, but I don't see how this guy is going to be like a strong, like desirable male lead. Also, I find it really strange that Benedict looks so much older than Anthony, but he's the younger brother. Is that just like a life of too much drinking and partying? What's that about? So I'm not that excited for it. Now, strangely enough, if there's, when season 3 comes around, I'm going to be more excited for the subplots. Like, what's going to happen with the Featheringtons? What's going to happen with Eloise and Penelope? What's going to happen with, like I say, like Kate and Lady Violet and Anthony? And, are we going to see more of Daphne to come back into the story? So I'm like, it's going to be a toss-up between if it's going to be Colin's story or Benedict's story. Maybe they'll do both in one season to sort of balance them out. But I'm actually not that excited for what could potentially be the main story, unless it's Eloise's, because let's be honest, she's a fierce character. Yeah. So if it's Eloise's, I'd be like, yeah, cool, let's see how this plays out, because she can be a little bit dorky and awkward. It'd be interesting to see her fumble her way through romance.
Yeah, I think I'm most excited for more Eloise adventures, and I would love to see because I have heard from some people who read the books about the way her sort of romance goes, and I would love to see how they tackle that. I definitely still want to see more Penelope. I want her to go like full villain edit, like just like, yeah, like no holds bar. Like I want to, like she just like claws come out. I think that'd be very fun to see. I want them to start like moving a little bit forward in time with the fashion. I think they're still sort of doing very much the same as they did in season 1. Like it still feels like it's still 1813, and I'm like pretty sure a year has passed. So I'd love to see a little bit more with that. And yeah, and all the older women on the show are so interesting. I want more like Lady Danbury's backstory. Like who was she married to? What happened there? And maybe who else? And yeah, Lady Violet with Kate would be an interesting little power struggle if there is one. I think that'd be very cool to see. But yeah, I'm down just for some more romance and some more class society issue.
I would also take a whole season about Queen Charlotte and the King ending racism together.
Yes, how did y'all do
There's
that?
going to be a prequel. There's going to be a prequel on that.
There's going to be a prequel?
Oh.
Yeah.
Oh, exciting.
Of the Queen.
Wow. See, I'm ahead of the curve, guys.
Nice. I love to wait this season so much. Wow.
I think I'm listening to what you guys are saying, and I've spoken to quite a few people, and it really feels like for me they're moving in the ensemble, because they wanted to introduce or do all these storylines in season 2 to keep us interested in season 3. I think they already dropped maybe viewers because of people that were only in it for the Duke, and then you come into season 2 and it's about a different like a different couple, and they didn't want to do it like the anthology type route. They wanted to have like everybody invested, like in a Grey's Anatomy. I mean, talking about Shonda now, Scandal type way. But So I think that's what they want. Like, they want you interested in all the subplots, and that's why they introduced so many this season. So I think that season 3, it's not going to be as focused on who's the main couple. That because there's like I've been talking to a lot of people, and we can't pinpoint who the main couple will be next. Because like with Benedict's romance, he kind of meets Sophie towards like a few years before their romance starts. So they haven't shown us that yet. So when is his romance going to start? I mean, obviously they can change things around. But like Colin, his romance is nowhere near ready. Eloise is nowhere near ready. Francesca's hardly been in the season. So like who is it gonna be? So that's why I feel like they're going to be building up a lot of different romances, like in like a Downton Abbey type style. And like and probably, and I want to see a lot of Kate and Anthony to make up for the little that I got this season. But
Same.
like they're probably gonna be showing Kate and Anthony a lot because now we invested in them. And they go, and unlike the Duke, who in the books is not much in the books, because they
Yeah.
have the Duke and Daphne move off to go do their own thing. But Kate and Anthony become the head of the family, so they're in all the other stories.
Mm.
So I think because people are invested in Kate, especially, they are going to like milk that and put that as part of the story. So I think that we're going to be seeing a very different Bridgerton to what we are used to. And maybe that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's
I like
evolving.
that idea. I think it's hard to build a entire season on like a couple because I think like for some people like they don't connect to what's his name,
Certain
Colin,
couples, yeah.
Anthony that much. So I think it's good to have like a bunch of things for each of us to find a thing to. Because I even in the last season I didn't really care that much about like Daphne and Simon's romance as much as I enjoyed all of the machinations going on around it. So I think that's like a fun way to keep sort of almost everyone happy. So like have your main couple and then the ensembles moving around them.
And I mean I've reread some of the books, but I never reread Benedict's book because I found it I didn't like him as a character. And I found the story boring. So I'm like, if the season was just about him, would I have skipped the season? Do you know what I mean? Like,
like the way you could skip a book.
Yeah, the way you could skip a book. So I think maybe, this is a good thing what they're doing. Just keeping, there's always something for everybody. Basically what we're saying.
So what do you guys...
But guys...
Sorry.
Oh, yeah, no. Khensani, go.
Question was just... Because I feel like, so like the first season we had our token black love interest, and then this one we had our love interest. So like, what do you think is the race for the season 3?
We're going Asian. Asian,
yeah.
We're going Asian.
We're going Asian. We're going like Chinese, Japanese vibes.
Yeah,
that'd be fun actually. I think
people were saying that they should get the I don't know if you guys watch Shadow and Bone.
Yes. Oh yes. Oh my god.
She's really good, and I was like, if that can work, I would actually be in for it.
I'd be down for that.
But yeah, seems Asian. I don't think Latina is such a big.
It won't tie into British society as easily
I don't think
as the rest.
So I think it's going to be Asian. I mean, we have to look where the British colonized. That's probably
maybe a Native American.
Maybe we could Pocahontas the situation.
I do think we need a black female also.
Yeah, we need a black woman.
Yeah.
So like so Sophie was Benedict's love interest. Oh, like I've seen a lot of the fan casts are either like Chinese or a black woman. So because I mean I feel like they could still do like an Asian man. I mean we have quite a few men coming up. But
there were a lot of supporting characters in this season that I noticed were Asian, and I was like, oh, okay.
Yeah. In the background. Oh, one of the women that like Anthony checks out.
Yes, on one of his.
The race of next season. That's very funny. But then we also have to bear in mind that both Colin and Eloise's love interests are white. So
I mean, we've met Colin, so that's going to be white, red, white.
So yeah, Lady Bridgerton is gonna have a more diverse family than many South African companies.
Her grandchildren, her
Yeah.
grandchildren are already
Yeah.
showing face.
Bridgerton's
more
doing
than
way more
Diana
for
Ross.
race relations.
Yeah.
They're the royal family. I mean,
Let's not talk about the royal family. I don't wanna get mad.
And on that bombshell.
Yeah. So on that bombshell, thank you guys so much for joining us for this chat. This was lovely. I had a good
fun.
time. I hope you had a good time.
Yes, thank you.
Very much.
Can't wait to chat to you guys after season 3. If our predictions are
Predictions.
correct. Yeah. But thank you so much. This has been great. Today's episode is brought to you by Syntech. Syntech is a technology company that sources and distributes industry-leading products and brands from around the world. Some exciting news. We have tickets to an exclusive pre-screening of Morbius in Johannesburg and Cape
You
Town.
need a doctor?
I am a doctor.
I should have died years ago.
People all over the world have my disease.
I'm here.
To find a cure,
We have to push the boundaries, take the risks.
if you're gonna run,
Do it now.
People are strange
Dr. Michael Morbius, you've been missing for 2 months.
when you're a stranger.
Then you were found on a container ship that washed up off of Long Island.
Faces look ugly when you're alone.
One of the most compelling and conflicted characters in Sony Pictures' universe of Marvel characters comes to the big screen as Oscar winner Jared Leto transforms into the enigmatic anti-hero Michael Morbius. Dangerously ill with a rare blood disorder and determined to save others suffering his same fate, Dr. Morbius attempts a desperate gamble. While at first it seems to be a radical success, a darkness inside of him is unleashed. Will good override evil, or will Morbius succumb to his mysterious new urges? The screenings will take place at 7:30 on Thursday the 31st of March at New Metro Canal Walk and Ster-Kinnick's The Zone at Rosebank. Check out our website to enter. We'll also be giving away some cool hampers in the coming weeks, so be sure to follow our social media for a chance to win. So that's a lot that's going on. We have a lot of exciting giveaways and events for listeners. So it's a great time to be a Crushing On listener, don't you think, Leanne?
Yes, finally paying off. Time to give back to the listeners. Yes.
Yeah. You guys that have been with us from the beginning, listening to me umming and ahhing and laughing.
Now you have me to giggle awkwardly in the background.
You paid the price. But thank you guys for listening this week. We'll be back next week with another great episode. Hopefully something more fun. We have a great show planned for you. So thanks so much. Bye. Me, you can find at Karen Welby on Instagram, at Karen Welbies with an S on Twitter, and sign up for my newsletter, Wildest Dreams, at wildestdreams.substack.com. The podcast can be found at Crushing On Pod on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. You can find us at What's IGN Crushing On YouTube, and you can find more information about this and all our other episodes on our website, crushingonpodcast.com. Send any feedback to mail@crushingonpodcast.com, and you can send us voice notes at +27 78362 2566. Join our Facebook group, Crushing On Club, where we chat about the show, celebrity news, recommendations, the whole shebang. The show is produced by me, Karen, as well as Rebecca Barches and Leanne Phillipson. The show is edited by Rebecca Barches. Our logo was designed by Nathifa Maroof. and the show was created in partnership with IGN Africa. If you like the show, tell everyone that you can, any way that you can. Keep up to date with episodes by subscribing to the show on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please rate and review the episodes on Apple Podcasts, as it helps others to find the show. We'll be back next week with another in-depth conversation with a pop culture lover. See you then.